Hi guys, I've decided to entitle this vlog Pepsi Max and Heresy. Why? Because it's a lot more interesting than saying book review. I love me some Pepsi Max. It's awesome. It's lots of caffeine and ginseng, great for us third shifters. But I want to talk about, in recent years, I've kind of come to different theological conclusions than I had in the past, and I want to talk about a few books that that really capture those theological positions. I've gone from basically buying the typical Western theology of penal substitution, which is essentially God killed God. God the Father killed God the Son, Jesus, to satisfy God's anger. And it's basically pits God against God, which is dualism, and doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me anymore. But the first book I want to talk about is called Beyond an Angry God. It's by Steve McVey, author of Grace Walk, which came out in about 1990. I read it a few years back. But the subheading is You Can't Imagine How Much He Loves You. And Steve McVey in this book, he takes reading the scripture from what we've typically done systematically through the lens of what we've been taught about who God is, which is usually starting with an old covenant type view of God. And he contends that the proper view of Scripture is to look at it through the lens of the cross, because Christ's finished work on the cross just changed everything and brought in a new humanity. And so what Steve does here is he looks at the way we've seen God and why we've seen God that way. And he goes back through Scripture and just basically shows us what the character of God is represented by Jesus. Because Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And basically what he was saying is, the Father is like me. I'm like the Father. So many of the things that we've read in the Old Testament that are scary to us, we're looking at them in the wrong lens, and therefore we see the Father as the mean part of God that we're distant from, and we see Jesus as the nice part of God. And of course the Spirit, there's different views we have of the Spirit. Anyway, it really makes no sense if you give it any deep thought. We don't need to pit the Father and Son against each other as if God, angry at us, had to punish his Son in our place. Yeah, Jesus died in our place, which Steve addresses in this. But the story is a whole lot different than what we've been taught as far as what that means to us and what the implications are for us and those around us and our view of unbelievers. The second book I want to talk about is called Saints in the Arms of a Happy God, Recovering the Image of God in Man by Jeff Turner. It's amazing. I'm only about 2/3 through this book, but I have to talk about it. The guy's 32 years old, very young guy, but brilliant. In here, he looks like he's about 12. um, thank God for those of us who look younger than we are. Um, but this has got to be about the most intelligent and thoughtful book I've ever read on this subject. The way this young man has gone through this is so relatable. It's a 400 and something page book, and it was a little intimidating at first because theology books can be thick, and neither of these are dense. They're easy to read. They're relatable, and even though I like dense books, I like deep thought. I mean, there's a lot of deep thought in these. But what Jeff Turner has done is he has taken us back through the scripture, looking at it through the lens of Christ. And he looks at the real purpose of what the words are saying. He totally demonstrates a different view of what sacrifice even meant to those in the Old Covenant, and looking at it through an old Jewish mindset and what they were really believing, as opposed to what we've superimposed on it over the years. And it's really helping me rethink the Old Testament. There's so many passages that we kind of, because we don't understand them, we just kind of bypass them. Jeff Turner takes those on. He meets them head on and presents a much clearer view of what's really going on and how it fits into the big picture as far as the New Covenant goes. I really recommend this book. Like I said, it is the most thoughtful and intelligent book that I've read on the subject, or on almost any subject. I'm continually impressed as I read. The illustrations that he comes up with are crystal clear and very relatable. Definitely go get it. But also, a lot of people have read The Shack and have really appreciated it. A lot of people have attacked The Shack. A lot of people that haven't read The Shack have attacked it. But it's a great book. I have a copy, but it's in my car. I've given away more copies than I've read. I've read it at least 3 times. But there's a book by C. Baxter Kruger that was written in conjunction with Paul Young, the writer of The Shack, called The Shack Revisited. And in that book, he goes through the deeper theology that that's behind The Shack. And it's a lot thicker theological book. It's not an exhaustive scholarly work, but it's a lot deeper, And so if you like reading deep books and you like deep thought, then it's great. But it's the same theological base of inclusive theology, which some people have said, "Oh, that's heresy. You're a universalist." And not that I necessarily even think universalism, Christian universalism, is a horrible thing. I just think that they're very dogmatic about something that I view as, I certainly hope that in the end God saves all. But I do think there's an element of, sometimes God says, you know what, if you choose to hate me, then I'm going to let you suffer those consequences. But I'm rambling, as I do. But I am not very eloquent verbally. That's why I'm a writer. But I did want to present these books to you, and if I had my copy of The Shack Revisited with me, I lent it to my sister. But again, go find it, go read it. and enjoy it. And I will see you guys next week, which hopefully the video that I've been planning I'll be done with. But due to sickness and tiredness, I haven't been able to finish it. But hopefully I am feeling much better and I'm back on track, and I will see you all next week.